Welcome back, everyone, to the Stay Introverted podcast. I am your co-host, Jay Coleman.
And I'm your other co-host, Steph Laffy.
And as always, we just want to start off by just saying thank you for rocking with us on this podcasting journey. Almost 40 episodes, Steph.
40? Oh my
Almost.
God. Like we were just talking offline about how it's been almost a year of recording. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But I guess we shouldn't really, we have a guest here, so let's introduce the guest and we can maybe get into the 40 episodes at some point. But we have a really special guest today. Rachel and I have been friends for almost 3.5 years, I think, which is absolutely crazy. And she is just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to sales. And so we thought it would be fun to bring her on and talk to you guys about sales as an introvert, because I, for one, am afraid of selling. So I don't know about you, Jay, but I'm excited for this convo.
I'm definitely excited. I'm not afraid of selling. I just have absolutely positively no idea how to do it effectively.
Well, Rachel, why don't we let you introduce yourself really quick?
Yeah. Okay. First of all, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you for having me on. And it's true, I met Stephanie through Instagram 3.5 years ago. So it just demonstrates the power of connection and networking online, and you never know where it's going to lead. So, and we're still connected. So it can be a powerful thing. So when I'm not friends with Stephanie, or while they're in conjunction with being friends with Stephanie, I am a sales coach and a trainer. And so my main focus is working with retail business, and I help them feel less pushy and know what to say when a customer says, I'm just looking. And so really my background, my specialty is working with underperforming stores and helping them increase their customer lifetime value.
Nice. And what sort of stores do you work with?
So typically retail. So like a brick and mortar B2C retail. So okay. I do my background is in luxury retail. So my focus tends to be a little bit more luxury now, but in the sense of like a winery or a coffee shop or a spa or jewelry, not necessarily like a high-end brand, but something that might be a little bit higher ticket or customer experience oriented.
Okay. But both. So many people, I don't know if I would say most people, but many people assume that extroverts have an easier time with building relationships, and having conversations about sales. But in what ways do you think that introverts can be suited to be good or become great at sales?
So I love this question because I believe that it's a huge myth that introverts can't sell. And it's often what I hear when people think like I can't sell, I'm just an introvert. Like that is what they lead with for the reason why they can't sell, when it's probably more. So it usually comes down to like a mindset thing, right? So if you identify as being introvert, you most likely, like an introvert traditionally gets drained being around people, right? So they re-energize by being by themselves. But when you're selling, right, you're typically not talking to a large group of people. You might be talking to one person or two people, right? And what introverts tend to do very well is they're very good at listening. And so if you really just focus on that one-on-one interaction, that's really all sales is, right? And just because you're introverted, you still are going to have relationships with people. You still have friends, you still have family, right? It doesn't mean that you don't like people at all. But I say this like with caution, right? Because not all extroverts either are bad at listening, and not all extroverts are, talking to a large group of people either. It's just kind of like a general consensus. If you're extrovert, you're going to be really high energy and you are really charismatic. But I actually find that a lot of introverts are also charismatic. They just go about it differently, and that's okay, right?
I love that. That's such a cool reframe, because it really is all about just the way that you're interacting with people. And so I think the big question here for me is, how do you what's the best way to let people know, like, not only are we having a conversation, but I'm really listening. I'm really listening to everything that you're saying, and it matters. And I'm like, this is a conversation. So what are your thoughts on that?
Like, how do you demonstrate that you're listening?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I would suggest asking a lot of questions. I think that when we take interest in others and we get really curious, we're demonstrating, I hear you, I want to know more, I hear what you're saying, I'm asking some clarification. I think that we tend to not feel heard when you say something and then someone changes the subject on you and they don't even acknowledge what comes out of your mouth. And so, demonstrating something like that doesn't mean that you have to be introvert or extrovert. It's just a human skill set, right?
Absolutely.
So I guess I agree with all of that, by the way, particularly the part about being charismatic. I have been accused of being charismatic, which I guess is a good thing. But kind of, but kind of building on that. I mean, I do prefer and do enjoy having those one-on-one conversations and actually learning something new about somebody. I'm not a fan of surface level conversation, but when you're in sales, where do you kind of draw that line? And what I mean by that is, you are getting to know someone, you are being genuine in your attempt to understand somebody, or understand a potential customer. But when do you actually, make your offer? Like that's kind of what one of the things that I struggle with is having a very good conversation and being so focused on the actual conversation that you forget about, hey, I'm actually trying to sell you this T-shirt or sell you this whatever, and you kind of panic because you feel like you have to jump back into it, or you're going to miss your opportunity, and that kind of just feels, I don't know, fake or kind of a letdown after such a great conversation.
I love this. This feels like some hot seat coaching for you, Jay. I love it. But I know that we're all thinking the same thing. So here's what I'm going to say. And I think that this will answer kind of the overall question here, like the introvert and selling as well. So when it comes to sales, it's really just about building connection. And if you can build a connection with someone, I promise you it's easier to do all the sales things, right? To ask for the sale, to follow up, right? To keep them engaged, to recommend, suggest, add on, all those things. So it's really about building connection with people, right? That is the heart of it. It's not about talking to a million people all at once. It's not about the hustle. It's not about all the transactions, right? It's just about building connection. So that's what introverts do well, but also extroverts. So don't let that hold you back. Now, what you said does come up a lot because it's like, okay, I hear you. I need to ask a lot of open-ended questions, figure out, build some engagement, build some connection, but maybe I've taken it too far, and you might have, right? So a good way you got to reel it back in is get back to the heart of why they're there, right? So if you're having a conversation and they're there about purchasing, make that pivot, make that suggestion. This is the time to say, hey, I heard you tell me this. I offer this, and I really feel that you would benefit from this, and here's why. So that's when you got to really circle back to benefits at that point instead of just features. Like, I sell a t-shirt. Here's this t-shirt. It comes in 5 sizes in blue, purple, and pink, right? Instead, you can say, hey, you told me this is what you're looking for, and hopefully through your conversation, you're learning about them, right? That's the point of having the conversation and asking questions, and now you can kind of circle back and connect with what they told you to what you sell, and you can make that pivot and say, hey, I have this product, and I actually think it'll meet your need, and here's why. So you're going to focus more on the benefit of what you sell to what they're looking for. Does that make sense? Do you see the difference?
All right. Got it.
So think about like events. I hear this a lot. Like, hey, I'm having this event. Here's the date. Here's the location. Would love to see you there. Oh, and here's the link to sign up. But so often we don't talk about that event as why that person you're reaching out to should come. So if you were instead like, hey, I'm hosting this event, it made me think of you. I wanted to personally invite you because you've told me XYZ in the past, and I really feel that this event is great for you. I'd love to have you there. You're going to feel very different about that conversation. Right? So it's all about building connection in order to better understand who you're talking to figure out how you can actually help them. And so that's where I think like pitching goes wrong. So you're like, at what point do I pitch? And a lot of like, I know this just went off on a tangent, but a lot of people tend to pitch immediately, but it's really, it doesn't land because you haven't built connection and you haven't figured out why someone would actually want your product or your service, right?
That's super helpful. And before I even like respond to that, we love tangents around here, so don't even worry about it.
We love tangents.
But that's such an interesting point, because I think that like what Jay says, like I get very uncomfortable in making that switch to making it from let me get to know you conversation to let me sell you on this, or let me touch on a conversation that we had in the past. And I get very caught up. But I think that the way that you just described it, like something just clicked for me. It's like, okay, like it doesn't have to feel salesy, it doesn't have to feel pushy. It could just be me touching on something that we've had a discussion about, whether it was 5 minutes ago or 5 months ago. And I think that that's really helpful, especially for our audience. Like, you're not making it about you, which is great. Like, we're introverts, we don't like to make it about us. So if we can, I think what I'm hearing you say is like, if we can make it about them, then it's like we've done our job.
Right. Right. I think what you just said is, and I hear that a lot. Like, I had a conversation with someone the other day, and they're like, I hate selling. Like, when I reach out to someone, and what if I don't hear back or I get rejected? Like, I'm so introverted. I'm like, no, that's not an introverted quality at all. That's just your fear of being rejected. But the reality is there is no 100% conversion. If you are converting 100% of your people, like, you've probably done something wrong. Like, you're not charging enough, or I don't know, but I'd have to think about that answer a little bit more. But there is no 100% conversion. In retail, like 20 or 30% is a really good conversion. So that means like 70 to 80% of the people you interact with are not buying, right? So we have to remember that. Is like, I always like to go back to the phrase, like, the answer is always no, unless you ask. So what is the harm in asking, right?
Right. And I guess to kind of piggyback off of that, what do you tell your clients about being patient? Because it's not just making that pitch or having conversations, but even if you do make a conversion, it may not be right then and there. It may be kind of down the line. One of the things that I've learned in this journey is that people buy when they buy. And I've been kind of keeping track of certain people that I interact with my page or interact with me directly, and there have been a few that have made a purchase, but I track back to like our first interaction, and it's like a month ago, 2 months ago, six months ago. So what do you tell your clients about hey, you're in this for the long haul? It's not really it's not always going to be in this purchase or a buy now sort of thing.
Yes. So that is a really hard thing, is that you have to remember that being in business is a long-term thing. So are your customers, and so is sales, right? You never know when someone's ready to buy, right? They could be ready in a year or 2 years. So I always recommend focusing on connection. Don't treat people differently just because they said no to you today. It doesn't mean no in the future. And like, there is like a difference, and oh my gosh, we could go into so many areas here. Like, an objection when they're like, I'm not sure, isn't a no. When someone's very bluntly like, no, that is a very, no, I'm not ready today, right? But we can talk about objections and all that later. I would just say, like, keep giving good service. Like you said, like, the fortune's in the follow-up, right? So take note of what people have told you. If you're building a connection, right, take note of what they have told you and shared with you, maybe what they didn't purchase that day or interest that they have. And as things come up, you can follow back up with them and share, hey, I read this article. It reminded me of the conversation that we had, or I heard this song. It made me think of what you told me. Or, hey, I'm about to launch this new workshop. You told me this was something you were concerned about. I think you'd be a great fit. So you never know, like, where in the future they're going to come back. I like to think of like, I feel like I'm giving out all these like juicy details. So I love it. So if anyone tries this, I want to hear how it goes. But I like to think of like your follow-up list, just like you segment your email list, right? Have a list of go-tos for different things that as things come up, you're like, I can reach out to this list when these things happen, right? Whether it's launching a workshop or maybe you have a category for interests, right, that they have, and you start noting those things. But that's really key for building relationship. Like think about your friends and your family. We still reach out to them in the future, right? You may not see them all the time, but as things remind us of them or their birthday or holidays, we're going to reach out and just acknowledge them, that we know them or we thought of them. So it really should not be different when it comes to sales. And like they say, people don't remember what you say. They really don't, but they remember how you made them feel, right? And so if you can still make people feel good about interacting with you, even when they aren't ready to buy, they're going to remember that in the future and want to come back and work with you. So, I think that's a big mistake too, is that we get frustrated and so we think it's like game over, we're done. And so we stop interacting, we stop engaging, we stop trying because someone has shut us down, or so we perceive it that way. And so we never try again. It's almost like it comes across as being disingenuous, right? Because we're so nice up until that point, they tell us no, then all of a sudden we disappear, which can actually indirectly come across as being cold, transactional, uninterested, right? And that's probably not what we're intending, right? So never be afraid to stay in contact. Yeah, sorry.
All right. Yeah. And I guess kind of again to kind of piggyback off of that, we definitely, like I said, it's definitely true that people remember how you make them feel, and sometimes we tend to get us trying to sell may get or may feel a sort of way or get emotional because success or what we want to happen isn't happening or isn't happening as quickly as we expect or as we think it should be happening.
Right.
So how do you or can you sort of remove that emotional element from selling? And I guess to kind of add on to the question, can you remove the emotion from selling without coming across as being cold, as you just mentioned?
This is an interesting question. To me, selling is actually a very emotional process. And so the type of sales I focus on, I should have said this at the beginning, it's called consultative selling. So it's like guiding, consulting, right? The sales process. And so that's very rooted in sales psychology. So sales psychology is very understanding people, behaviors, right? And so like what makes people buy. So to me, sales is actually a very emotional thing. And not that you should manipulate people's emotions to get them to do what you want, right? But it's about better understanding how people reply to things emotionally so that you like don't unintentionally do something. It's kind of flipping it, right? So I think what you're trying to ask is like, how do you not get butt hurt if someone says no, or how do you like come up like, because cold and transactional is very like, I'm just here for the sale, right? And you don't get like your own.
Is the technical term?
I know. It's not a very nice term. But how do you not feel like deflated? Maybe that's a better word. Or like rejected, or like let down, disappointed, or bummed, or how do you not let it get to you like, oh, I really needed that sale and it didn't happen, right? So I would say if you see that over and over, it might be more about like, what are you offering? Do you really believe in what you're offering? Does it make sense? And then reevaluate, are you actually connecting with these people? Did you find out enough information about them? Were you able to connect the dots when you actually told them why they should buy, right? Because I think we like word vomit. We get really excited about what we're doing that we just want to tell them everything. And then we like made it about us, right? And so I think that's when people get turned off, is when it's not really about them, it's about the other person. And so spend some time, think about what do you need to know in order to like pitch a service, right? Think about those questions you need to ask. Think about what those answers might look like, right? And spend some time prepping before a conversation. Truly, it's like role playing almost with your like self before you go into like a sales conversation. I think that will help you feel more confident in what you do. And you're not always the right fit for everyone, and that's okay. Maybe through your conversation, you find out you have a better answer for them. People really remember if you think of them and you connect them to something else too, and they might come back to you in the future. So, it's sometimes it's okay when someone says no. Sometimes it just means you have opportunity for something else, or it's a time to reflect or kind of reevaluate what you're doing.
Absolutely. So it's really all about, from what you're saying, like taking little clues that they're giving you throughout the conversation and saying, okay, are they a match for whatever service or product that I'm selling? Like, you're almost playing matchmaker.
Mhm.
And if it doesn't work, can I connect them with somebody in my network? And if I can't, okay, maybe we can just have a relationship and see
Mhm.
where it goes. Because maybe there's something in the future that I will offer that that will work for this
Yeah.
person.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And gosh, you never know how people are going to come back into your life either. They could end up being your boss one day, or you could end up being one of their clients, right? I mean, you just always be nice to people. I know it's hard. I can't tell you how many times I've asked people to come to my workshop and they're like, they ghost me or they don't reply. I'm like so offended because I'm like, I thought we had a better relationship than that. But I've learned to, it's never about you. You just might have not been the right fit for them, or maybe they had something going on in their life. But, I've had those same people then come to a later workshop and show up. So, you just keep treating people the way that you've always been treating them. We all want to be very authentic and genuine. I think we all kind of get nervous sometimes that we're not coming across that way. And so this is a really good reminder is that just because someone says no to you, you shouldn't change how you interact with them. Keep treating them the same way you have been if you want to be coming across as genuine.
Absolutely. I mean, I can remember back in the days when I was like offering coaching and stuff, um, and whatever else I was offering, I would get so in my head about like, oh my God, this person said no, this person ghosted me, this person doesn't like me now, and like it was it was so deflating. And I almost want to go back to like that version of me and be like, okay, like, like you just need to listen, you just need to ask more questions. You need to stop making it about you. So I love that you're sharing this, and I wonder, like, now that I've taken a step back for a couple of years now from selling, I wonder if I were to go back in and like throw myself to the wolves again, how the experience would be now that I know it really is about listening.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good reminder is try not to be hard on yourself, right? We
Hmm.
all are learning and sales is a skill. It's a skill that you have to constantly be working on. And oh my gosh, I like even right before I left the fine jewelry industry, I never will forget this customer said to me like, "Can I shop online?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And they were like, "Well, you're really rushing me right now." And I'm like, "What?" Like that is so not who I am. And I've been doing this for so long. And so I was taken aback that in that moment, right, I wasn't doing my best, even though I had been doing it for so long. And so, I apologized and explained, like, oh, it's absolutely not my intention. Like, thank you for letting me know. And so that I can correct this, like, tell me, like, and I realized maybe I wasn't asking enough questions in that moment. I was so focused elsewhere. So, even when you've been doing something for a while, you make mistakes and you can grow and learn and you look back and you cringe. So, it's just part of learning. It's part of developing a skill and building that muscle around it. We're not perfect. No one wants to be perfect.
Absolutely. So I want to kind of go back a little bit to something that you said earlier, just about how a big part of sales and particularly building customer relationships is all about like just making people feel like you remember the details, making people feel like you're listening. And that's something that in our time being friends, you always do so well. Because there are so many companies that like on my birthday or around my birthday, I get like 50 million emails that are like, come shop and we'll give you 50% off. And it feels so disingenuous because I don't have a relationship with these companies. So how do you I guess like with the example of like wishing somebody a happy birthday, like that's nice, but how do you take it a step further and make it more personal without it feeling like sleazy or salesy?
Okay, I feel like there's a few things there. So, I mean, as you know, one thing that I really enjoy doing that is a very Rachel thing is sending handwritten cards. And so I will often send handwritten cards for thank you, for birthday. And I don't see it as an opportunity to pitch. I see it as an opportunity to strengthen a relationship, right? And who doesn't love to feel thought of? Over the years, and I've worked in the jewelry company, I had so many customers come in and say, no one wished me happy birthday this year. My family, my friends were not there. And your card was the only thing I got. And so knowing that you can make that kind of a difference in someone's life is so powerful. And that, going back to introvert and extrovert, that has nothing to do with that type of a personality. It's literally just connecting human to human, right? Our best customers that we have, and I still encourage all my clients, as a team, like send your best customers a happy birthday card as a team. Get everyone to sign it, right? They should know whoever, like your whole team is. It's so personal and it goes such a long way. And you don't have to write more than just, hey, I'm wishing you a happy birthday. I hope you have a great time with your family and friends and enjoy an extra slice of cake or something. It doesn't have to be complicated. So in order to get to that point, to remember those things, it's really good to take notes. So just like what you were saying, Jay, is you tend to kind of take notes after conversations a little bit on who you've been interacting with, who's paying attention. So take note. What has someone told you? Did they share a favorite color with you? Did they tell you a name of a family member? Are they going on a vacation soon? Like what kind of personal detail did they tell you besides like their hair color or the name of their business, right? Write those things down. They're going to come back around, and maybe if they give you like a name of a family member, right? You can write in that birthday card, I hope you have a great time with so and so for your birthday, right? Like that is really paying attention and demonstrating that you actively listened.
Nice. So I guess would you say that sales is more of an art than a science, or was it more of a science than an art?
I know I hear it both ways, don't you? I would say it's a little bit of both
Okay.
because of the sales psychology aspect. That is science, right? You're understanding human behavior. And so when you better understand how people react to things or why they think the way that they do, that's the science, right? And that's where like all the really cool like sales psychology hacks come in, like greet someone at this angle if you want them to feel this way or like, more comfortable around you. That so many books are written around, right? There's all these fun little sales psychology hacks. But I also feel that it's like an art because it's a practice, right? It's a skill set. And so you have to practice it to get better at it. And like, practice how something sounds and feels when you say it. And does it feel comfortable for me? So I would say it's a little bit of both. What is your take? What would you say?
I have no idea. It's all Greek to me. So once I guess once I get to a certain level, I'll be able to really answer that question. I agree. I do think that there are definitely elements of both. Like there are definitely, like I said, the sales psychology part, which I didn't even realize was a thing, but it actually does make sense because at the end of the day, you're dealing with and negotiating with people, and so that makes sense. But there are techniques, but yeah, there is an art to it because there's 8.5, 9 billion people on the planet. They're not all the same. You have to treat them differently. Um, you'll have people buying the same things who come from different backgrounds or buying it for different reasons, and you have to uh, connect with that. You have to find some appreciation for that. The same thing that worked for Jay might not work for
Mm-hmm.
Steph. It might not work for Rachel. So yeah, there's definitely an art to it. But I guess kind of behind that art are the foundations and kind of the techniques that you've learned over time. So that is my uninformed opinion on sales.
Yeah. Well,
I actually, oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, we just talked about some new ideas. I'm sure it's going to take a moment to process what's said. And yeah, I always love to like flip things on its head. So
Same.
Yeah, I actually, like, as you're talking, Jay, or as both of you are talking, I'm kind of thinking that part of the reason that I struggled so much with sales, when I was like in that area is because I was so stuck in the business or like sales is a science. Like I was so in like my masculine, like analytical energy that I was overthinking it and trying to think my way through sales and not really focusing on that human connection. And so I would just get so caught up and so flustered when somebody said no because I was almost treating them as a transaction, which, as you said earlier, is such a big no-no. Um, and I think had I focused a little bit more on the emotion and the human connection of it all, it might have been, or had I treated business as an art rather than a science, I might have had more success. So Rachel, I'm curious if you've seen the opposite, where people focus. Is it possible to focus too much on the art of it and not enough on the science? Like, what are the downsides of that?
So, I mean, obviously, cold pitching works, right? People
Mhm.
wouldn't keep doing it if it didn't to some extent.
Right.
I think that, so if you're focusing on like the art of it, and I could be wrong, so I have to think about this for a second.
Sorry to
It
put you
can
on the
be,
spot there.
no. I would say that sometimes we focus on too much connecting that we never actually pitch. That can happen too, that you wait too long for someone to actually come to you. And I think you would be surprised to learn that many people wonder why you haven't pitched them yet, especially when you're building a connection. And so then you're like, oh, like, well, I was waiting for you to have a reason. But I can tell you that when you wait for people to come to you, you're going to wait a long time. So there is like an element of like you do need to take a little initiative and ask for the sale. And so I think that that is where it kind of blends nicely with sales psychology is that you're understanding like when I say this, I'm going to get this type of response and customers really like it when I do that. So you're wanting to really learn what you need to do more of that people like, right? That's where the science comes in. But then the rest of it becomes easier when you build the connection, right? Like even just something simple like my name's Rachel, what's your name? Like getting to know people human to human makes it easier later on. But I mean, there is like a process to sales. There is a step by step, right? So there is kind of a formula to follow in many ways. So I would say like the polar opposite is that like you connecting and that you never ask for the sale. And then the other side is you're just there for the sale. Like I do a lot of networking. I'm not sure if either of you do, but perhaps someone, if you're listening, you do. And there's always that person at an event that is so focused on trying to meet everyone in the room because I have to meet everyone because I don't know where my client is and I have to make sure that they have my business card and information. And so what ends up happening is they also approach people and they just hand their card. I'm Rachel. I'm a sales coach. Here's my card. Let me know if you need help. But it's never reciprocal, right? It's never like, tell me more about you. How did you hear about this event? Like, what do you do, right? And so what ends up happening, and I can tell you, I've seen this, is people will take your business card and just throw it away, right? Like you're never going to get a call. So you end up burning yourself out because you're so focused on converting every single person that you interact with that you're not actually taking the time to connect. So I think that's kind of your polar opposite is you're so focused on like just making any sale. And then the other side is like you're connecting a little bit too much. You really want to be in the middle, right? And that's hard. It takes practice.
Yeah. I was actually now like as you're saying that, I'm like I was on the other side too where I got so burnt out of like just trying to like pitch and focusing on the science of it that I went in the complete opposite direction and like I was afraid to even to get to that point. So that's super interesting. And to your other point about seeing people at networking events and just like in general, pitching, it is so cringy and so uncomfortable. um,
And we don't want to be like that either.
Yeah,
So then we're like,
exactly.
pitch, I'm doing something wrong. You're not doing anything wrong, right? Like,
Right.
but there's like a way to do it effectively, right? It's
Mm,
not leading with it. It's when it comes later, once you know that you're actually a good fit for the person. That's a lot of energy to
absolutely.
waste, to be constantly talking about what you do and handing out cards and like running all around, right? That's a lot of
Especially for an introvert. Yeah.
But I
well,
also
even
I
as an
think
extrovert, I mean, I
Yeah,
can point
yeah.
out too at events.
Yeah.
but I think being an introvert is kind of um, an asset when you're at networking events, and I'm slowly
Mhm.
um, putting myself out there more to network. But I'm realizing that as an introvert, um, you kind of have a built-in topic to talk about, mainly because a lot of people don't understand introversion. So when
Mhm.
you get on the topic of you being an introvert, the first question is, "Wow, why are you here?" And
Mhm.
that can kind of open the door to some
Yeah.
things, and that's something that I just kind of realized that I have we have sort of a built-in actual discussion that we can have, and that can kind of branch off into so many different areas, including here's this card. Talk later. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to be taking advantage of more networking events.
Good. It's changed my life, and so I really encourage that. It's a really powerful tool to use. And it's funny that you say that. I would say that the majority of people at a networking event would say that they're introvert. And I'm like, oh, really? Are you? Like, do we understand
Yeah.
that?
That happened
But
to us
I'm
at
extrovert.
our yeah,
I'm
Right.
that happened to
extrovert
us
and I
at
get
our
overwhelmed.
Yeah. I think people don't realize, like, at the end of the day, introvert, extrovert, ambivert, omnivert, whatever you are, like, you're
Mhm.
still a human above all else. So, like, Jay and I always say, introversion's not a monolith. It could be represented in a million different ways. And just like extroversion. So you can be a shy extrovert. You can be outgoing introvert. You can be like all of these things that people think are oxymorons, but they're not. They're just another part of your personality.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think people look at the extremes and treat the extremes as like as the rules or the things that are set
hmm
in stone.
Right.
And that
absolutely.
applies to both introverts and extroverts, as Steph said.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right.
I go to events and sometimes I walk in and there might be 75, 100, 125 people. And that's overwhelming. You're like, wow, there's a lot of people in this
Yeah.
room. And maybe it's a lot of people you don't know, right? And so then you're like, oh, what do I do? But usually when I walk away from those events, I feel really energized. I feel motivated and excited, right? But I do have those moments like, this is a lot of people, right? And so I I know we all feel that way, right? And so it doesn't, like I said, I'm an extrovert. I'm not typically introverted. Like even I feel the same things that you feel, right? And so it's, an introvert, and I can't speak to that, but you may walk away and go, wow, I'm actually really tired. Like I need some alone time to kind of process. For me, I'm like, no, I'm energized. Like let's go after the event. But it doesn't mean that I'm still not like overwhelmed by how many people are around.
Absolutely. That's an important distinction. um, so Rachel, I think our time is starting to come to an end. So before we even like have you plug, are there any like last thoughts, last words that you want to share with our audience of like what they should think about when it comes to sales?
Yeah, it's if you really believe in what you do and you know that it can change lives, right? Why wouldn't you want to share it with everyone? Don't be afraid to talk about it because if you're not, it's truly just a disservice, right? To what you sell, right? Because it's not having the opportunity to change someone's life or shine, right? You're disservicing yourself and your business because right? You're not putting it in front of people to learn about it and know about it. And you're just servicing a customer because they're now still stuck at that same place that they are where they could actually benefit from what you have to offer. So never be afraid to put it out there if you believe in it. Again, it always comes back to connection, right? So focus on building connection learn the skills. That's what sales is really about, is how to build connection with people, or it should be about that. I suppose it's not always. And I promise you that sales will be fun and easy once you learn how to connect with people. And then you'll be in that place where I know that I have to talk about what I do, right? Think about opening a new restaurant. You're going to want everyone you know to know that you opened it, right? Because you're so excited and proud of it. It should be the same for what you sell. There's no reason to not share in that excitement. So don't let the fear of being an introvert or an extrovert hold you back. Just focus on how you connect with people, because really, when you're selling, you're likely talking to one or two people, a small group. It's not a large audience.
I love that. That's awesome. So where can everybody find you if they want to learn more, potentially work with you, or just get? You have such great tips on Instagram, but where else can people find you?
Yeah, so I am based in the Pacific Northwest. So if you're up here, I mean, I'd love to connect with anyone and everyone in person, or if I end up traveling in your town, like let's meet. But I tend to be most active on Instagram, but I am on LinkedIn and Facebook as well. My handle is Rachel Morgan Coaching. So I'm sure you'll have that in the show notes for selling. And then I love to work with people through workshops. So whether that's doing like more of a conference or coming into your business and doing a workshop with you, mystery shopping as well. I love to do that to, see what the experience looks like. And then I also create sales training programs. So if you're like, you know what, I really want to help my team on this, this is something we can talk about, and we'll create a personalized plan on how you can train your team.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow. You've got like a whole bunch of awesome resources and ways to work with you. So that's awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening. This was the Stay Introverted podcast. And if you loved this episode, be sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating and a review. We'll catch you next Tuesday.
Thank you for the y'all.
Bye.